Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the book launch of Maxwell Smart's memoir, The Boy in the Woods, with Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, Harper Collins Canada, and Montreal Holocaust Museum. My name is Lior, and I'm the program's lead for Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center. Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies is committed to countering racism and anti-Semitism, to promoting the principles of tolerance, social justice, and Canadian democratic values through advocacy, education, and programs like this. We are honored to have Maxwell here tonight to do a reading from his book and speak to his story of survival and heroism with Naomi Parnis. The Boy in the Woods is currently #1 overall nonfiction bestseller and the #1 nonfiction bestseller in Canada by a Canadian author. If you have any questions during the program, please use the chat function and so we can look at them for after. Before Maxwell comes to speak, I would like to welcome the Montreal Holocaust Museum to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Lior. My name is Sarah Fogg, and I'm head of communications at the Montreal Holocaust Museum. On behalf of our museum, I want to profoundly thank Maxwell Smart, Naomi Parnis, the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Education, as well as Harper Collins Canada for organizing this important event. It's not every day that one has the opportunity to hear a story like Mr. Smart's, especially not one told as powerfully, vividly, and memorably as he is so gifted at doing. During our museum's last Yom HaShoah commemoration, Montrealers came together to remember the 6 million victims, pay tribute to the survivors, and bring the painful lessons of the past into the present. Most notably, they had the distinct honor of hearing Maxwell's testimony. I cannot count how many conversations we had with viewers who were blown away by Maxwell's story and his unique ability to transmit his memories as though he is watching them unfold before his eyes. The publication of The Boy in the Woods is a remarkable gift, legacy, and responsibility. With this book, Maxwell helps ensure that the next generation not only remembers his story, but that they personally connect with his vivid memories and the history of the Holocaust. As the distance grows between us and the events of the Shoah, it is our collective connection to stories like Maxwell's that will bring the Holocaust memory and its human rights legacy into our present. It is a privilege for our museum, the Montreal Holocaust Museum, to be a partner of this special program, and I am so personally honored to be with you here today. Thank you again to our friends at the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies. Thanks everyone, and back over to you, Lior.
I'm muted, sorry. Thank you, Sarah. Maxwell Smart was born Ojak in 1930 in Buchach, Poland. At age 11, he was left alone and homeless in war-torn Europe, where his family was killed. Max's epic tale of heroism will inspire with its proof of the enduring human spirit. From brutality of war emerges a man who would become a celebrated artist, offering the world, in contrast to the horrors of his suffering, beautiful works of art. The Boy in the Woods is a remarkable historical document about a time that should never be forgotten. A father and grandfather, he lives in Montreal with his wife, Tina. Maxwell Smart is still painting at 91. Now, please join me in welcoming Maxwell Smart. Just need to unmute yourself.
Unmute, there you go.
Good evening. Am I on?
One second.
Yes, you're good to go.
Good evening.
You should read this. Right?
What?
Here, you can read this.
Could I read you the?
Yeah, you can begin.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I want to say just a few words. As a Holocaust survivor, I'm very proud and honored to be the guest of Simon Wiesenthal Holocaust Studies. And I want to personally thank you for arranging this launch of my book, The Boy in the Woods, published by Harper Collins. And I have the opportunity to give me the opportunity to read a chapter from my book. I believe that your membership and your outreach of technology today is that will make a lasting impact on the generation to come. Otherwise, and listen to my story, and they give them an opportunity to hear the stories from my book. The Wiesenthal Center is a world-renowned organization whose reputation as Holocaust-related matters reaches into many countries around the globe. In Canada alone, they are active in 7 provinces with their head office in Toronto. It is fate that through me, I have the opportunity today in writing my book. I wrote my book late in life. Now in my 90s, I finally have the ability to spread my story far and wide around the world. Through my book, through the platforms like yours tonight. For this, I have to thank many organizations and many people. They have made this book signing event successful tonight. The Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies and their staff, and their special thank to Melissa and Lauren Saharia and other dedicated and much appreciated people, Naomi Parnis. The Montreal Museum, the Montreal Holocaust Museum, which Esther and Sarah many times talked to me. The Tel Aviv University of Canada, the executive director, Sharon Frankel, helped me many times. The publisher of my book, The Boy in the Woods by Harper Collins, and my personal publishers, Rebecca Silva, and her staff helped me with the book tremendously. My many thanks and appreciation to the Azrieli series of Holocaust survivors of the memories to publish my first book, Chaos to Canvas. I want to thank you very much, Naomi Israeli, for your support. And a special thanks to Jim Gifford, who deserves credit for finding the 10-year-old boy hiding in the woods. My book is the story of a 10-year-old boy who survived alone in the woods and eventually came to forgive those who tormented him and killed his entire family. My mother's last words to me before she was killed was, "Save yourself." I think she would be proud of all that I have accomplished, particularly standing here before you today. Do you know that Simon Wiesenthal and I are both landsmen from the same city? I would like to read to you a quote from another landsman born in my town of Butcher. He is a historian. He is Emmanuel Ringenblum, whose quote I used in my book. And I will quote you. "Even in the most barbaric times, a human spark glowed in the rudest hearts and children were spared. But the Hitlerian's beast is quite different. It would devour the dearest of us, those who arouse the greatest compassion, our innocent children." Also, it is a memorial for the 6 million Jews, and I have 1.5 million children that perished in the Holocaust, including my mother, my father, and my 5-year-old sister. My book, published by Harper Collins, which is available in all Costco stores in Canada, Amazon, Chapter, Indigo, even in Walmart, is the best-selling Canadian book reported in the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail for the second time. This book, as its core, is about racism, hatred, xenophobia, anti-Semitism. It is about suffering, death, and murder. It is also about happiness and good people, Ukrainian, Polish, and Russian, who liberated me and helped me to survive. This is the story of my life. And thank you very much for listening. I would also like to read a segment of a chapter from my book, The Boy in the Woods. If you don't mind, I will continue. The chapter I'm going to read you is a segment from a chapter, Death at Night. It is on page 53 in my book. It is winter, very cold outside. It is before dawn. We were woke up by screaming, crying, shouting in a pandemonium. We were too terrified to leave our bunker. After it had been quiet for a while, we decided to investigate. We walked curiously toward the river where the shooting was coming from. But when we reached the riverbank, we saw a horrible sight. There had been a complete massacre. The sight was so horrible that we could barely look at it. The snow was covered completely and stained with blood. There were bodies, 8 bodies, scattered everywhere. The people had probably been running away from the Banderovce, and Yannick insisted so we get out from here as quickly as possible because maybe they'll still be close by. He was scared. We were just 2 young boys. We thought about what to do with so many dead bodies. Do we leave them here? What do we do with them? Or do we bury them in the bunker? But one thing we decided, both of us, we need their clothing, our shoes, their shoes. We had no shoes at all. And our clothing was torn and full of holes. We were literally wearing rags, and their clothing was in relatively very good condition. This horror is etched in my memory, and I cannot erase it. I don't know why we were leaving, and I turned around before I left the area. But I did, and I noticed a body half submerged in the river, and the river was approximately 40 feet wide, and its banks were encrusted with ice and very slippery. But as I looked at the body, something moved. The woman is alive, I said to Yannick. I felt we had to go in to the other side and help that woman and help her something. Maybe we could do something. My morality wouldn't allow me to leave a person who was still alive in the water to die. We had to try to help her. I said, Yannick, we do have to try. I can remember Yannick crying and saying that the weather is too cold to go in. That he is afraid he can't swim. That the weather is freezing. He's afraid he's going to die if he goes in. I grabbed his hand and together we plunged in the cold water, clinging to each other so that the current wouldn't overpower us. We were so cold that our bodies became numb, and I wasn't sure that we were going to make it to the other side. But we crawled over the ice and sloshed forward until we finally reached the riverbank. I could see immediately that it was not the woman who had moved. It was a very little small child who was probably about 2 years old. Her entire body was completely covered with snow, but she was held there between her mother's frozen arms, just above the water. It was incredibly lucky that she did not freeze to death. Her mother's dead body sheltered her from the wind and the cold of the night. She was somehow still alive. When the baby heard us, she started to cry hysterically. It was difficult to remove the baby from their mother's arms, frozen arms. I succeeded. Every minute that we stayed in the freezing water increased the danger to us. So with the baby held in my chest with one arm, and Yannick holding the other, we quickly crossed and exited the cold water. We had to leave the body of the woman in the riverbank exactly where she was found. I could continue, but buy the book and read about it. Thank you very much. This is only one part of an experience in my book, The Boy in the Woods. I thank you for listening. I will answer you any questions you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxwell. I would now like to introduce Naomi Parnis, who will be joining Maxwell to discuss his book. Naomi Parnis is an award-winning storyteller, content creator, communication specialist, and journalist. A reporter with over 20 years experience, she spent almost a decade at CTV News Toronto. Prior to CTV, she worked at Checks TV in Peterborough.
Yeah. Something just came on my computer and I'm just trying to mute it right now. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Where was I? Prior to CTV, she worked at Checks TV in Peterborough, CTV2 Barrie, CBS News, and New York One. She wrote, reported, and helped produce a 5-part series about the Nazi death camps. It won a 2006 Edward R. Murrow Award for Best Documentary and the National and Regional RTNDA Dave Rogers Award for Best News Feature. And in 2016, she spent 3 years as Director of Digital Content and Storytelling at the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. And in 2019, she became the principal and founder at KPW Communications. Naomi is an active volunteer in her community and sat on the Holocaust Education Week for over 2 decades. So welcome, Naomi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Maxwell, I must tell you, I read the book ahead of this interview and I watched Cheating Hitler, but hearing you read it was such a different experience. And I'm sure everyone listening was impacted the same way as me. It's extremely emotional to hear you reading your own words, knowing the feelings that you probably have reading those words and how difficult it must have been for you to tell this story. And you start your book by saying that your wife urged you to write the book so you would no longer be ashamed of your suffering and to help with your conflicted feelings about being a child survivor. Maxwell, talk about the experience of writing this book, how hard it was, and why were you ashamed?
Well, when I arrived, it's a story. When I arrived in 1948, it wasn't very complimentary in Canada being a refugee. Mm-hmm. It wasn't very, the the people in Canada couldn't understand at all what really happened in Europe, or they didn't want to understand. So I kept it quiet. I kept it suppressed. Nobody really from the Jewish population asked me what happened, how was it. Nobody really was interested. They were interested that I came, I will take away their jobs. They also had a hard time over here with sugar, with milk. They couldn't, it was not important. So I just kept it quiet. And I felt they don't want to know. I'm not going to tell them. And I didn't. I stepped quiet and I waited for the opportunity to be able to tell the story. I did want to, but nobody wanted to listen at that time.
And so you felt ashamed, though? I've never heard Holocaust survivors say that.
Not only ashamed, I was called, in back home, I was called a dirty Jew. Okay, I accepted that, and it wasn't a big deal. But when I came to Canada, they called me Marquis, they called me Greenhorn. They attached all kinds of names. So how could I start telling him who I am? I was ashamed to be who I was. Maybe they're right.
It's extremely upsetting and very sad. I know you talk a lot in the book about your experience coming to Canada, and we can talk about that coming up. But you did mention that you started telling your story very late in life. So how old were you when you started talking about your story, and why did you wait so long? I mean, you talked about being ashamed and not wanting to, but what about with your own family and friends?
The children, I had children. The schools didn't know nothing about the Holocaust. My kids didn't come in and ask me what happened. Nobody knew anything. Holocaust was like wiped out completely, non-existing.
Wow.
So why would I want to just tell? But you know, I had a tragedy. My wife passed away. So I married my second wife. And I opened up to her. And I started to talk about, and I told her, I'm ashamed. I am sorry. I am a Holocaust survivor. I have no background. They don't want me. They reject me. The population of Montreal rejected me. I don't blame them today. They could not find out anything about me. Who am I, really? I have no family. You can't trace me. You don't know where I came from. Maybe I'm not even Jewish. So how could I trust me? They didn't want me to go out with their children. They go with their daughters. I was a complete stranger.
Wow.
And so I kept it. I kept it from my children. But when I remarried, and I was already in the 60s or 70s, it was 1970, in the 70s, she said, why are you ashamed of it? Tell the people. And the Israeli Foundation started to press books. The Holocaust became known in schools. So I figured maybe it is an excellent idea to do it.
Yes.
And that's what I did.
Well, and with the rise of anti-Semitism right now and the fact that there are so few Holocaust survivors left, we are so grateful that you shared your story and now are sharing your story with the world, because these are the stories that need to continue to be told. So I'm grateful. As I'm the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, I will continue to share my grandparents' story, but I'm grateful that you shared your story finally and that you were able to talk about it.
And then, you know, there were many deniers. All of a sudden, the Holocaust didn't exist even. And people didn't know what to believe. But with the education that happened, they started to believe and they started to understand. And that's why I opened up and wrote the book.
So Maxwell, you were 9 years old when the war started. Your mom refused to leave your hometown when the Nazis invaded, and you said that that cost her life. Your family tried to hide, but you were caught and ended up in jail. You say it's what happened in that jail that led you to your fate. You said her words are what guided you through the war and gave you the strength to continue living. So tell everyone, what did your mother say that guided you through the war?
You know, my family was already gone. I had nobody except my mother and my sister. In jail, I imagine, I think so, she didn't tell me. She knew that this is the end.
Mm-hmm.
So she says, you know, there's nobody of our family left. You have to try to escape. But where am I going to go? She said, you have to escape if you want to live and if you want to do something for our family, for our future. Please try to escape. Whatever reason and whatever happens, try to walk away from those trucks. I couldn't understand why she's rejecting me. She's taking my sister in the arms and me, she's pushing away. Well, how could you, why don't you want me?
Mm-hmm.
But when I fell, I realized that maybe I should listen to her, what she said. I got up and I walked away. I walked away from an encircled section where they were loading up all the people. I have no idea how or what happened. Nobody saw me probably walking away, or nobody figured a juvenile hasn't got the I don't know. There must be something that protected me for walking away. And I did walk away.
You told me before you think it's luck that you survived.
Yeah, I survived. And I survived.
But you think it's luck.
Luck. I don't think it's luck. I think maybe it's a heavenly thing. Maybe angels protect me. My wife is very angelic. So maybe this, I don't know. Something protected me. Something made me invisible. It is impossible. We were surrounded with military people with arms. They must have seen me walking away. As a matter of fact, I was caught on the bridge by a policeman.
Mm-hmm.
He took out a gun and put it in my head. And he asked me, are you a Jew? And I said, no. And I went away. Now you tell me, is this luck?
Yeah.
I am not.
Well, and your mother's words guided you as you hid in the forest. You talked about it in the book, how
something guided me. Something must. I am not religious, but I don't like the religious the religious the arrangement of religion. But I am religious. I believe that something more than luck was there.
Well, and you had people helping you along the way. So tell us about, I don't know if I'm going to say his name right. Is it Yasko or Jasko?
Yashko.
Yashko.
Oh.
Tell us about Yasko. He's the person who helped save your life, and you've been trying to make him a righteous among the nations.
This Yashko is a Polish farmer, a poor Polish farmer. They used to call him a farmer without a farm. But he was but he had a heart of gold.
Mm-hmm.
He took me in, he dressed me up, and he was calling me Stashik. I became like his son. He wanted me to be his son, actually, but he couldn't. He dressed me up. I stayed in his home. He fed me. He gave me food. He lived in a tiny little settlement of 5 homes. I figured I was protected. I figured that I'm going to survive here. I have no problem. I have he was young, mind you. He was maybe 27. I was 12 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured maybe I'll be able, maybe I'll convert, maybe I'll become not Jewish. I don't know. I stayed with him. I was very, very happy. And he did really help me survive all the way till the liberation. this is Yashko. But I was caught with all the protection and all his efforts. I was caught by somebody reported me that he's keeping a Jew. And they called the police and they came looking for me.
The memories are so vivid. I'm always fascinated by how vivid the memories are for Holocaust survivors.
You know, when you ask me a question, I don't answer. I am automatically in the place of the question that you ask. You ask me about Yashko. I was right in his home. I saw the police through the window coming for me.
It's incredible that you can remember all of this.
I am I remember, I still remember today. I'm normal. I may be old, but I'm still around.
And so you ended up in the forest, which is obviously the title of the book, and you felt very alone. You talked about feeling very, very alone. You were an orphan. You were very alone in the forest. Talk about what it was like to be hiding. We hear a lot of stories about people who have been in concentration camps, but not as many about people who had to hide in the forest. So what was it like? And you met someone there who thankfully became your friend.
What happened, as I mentioned to you, they called the police to Yashko's home that he's hiding somebody. He says he doesn't. But after they left, he was scared to keep me. So he says, Stashik, I'm afraid, because they forced him. They said they will kill his family if they find me. So he really became scared. So he says to me, you have to go in the forest and hide. I went. What do you do in a forest? It's dark, it's cold. You're not dressed for anything in the forest. The first thing to look is to sleep. And I found a hole under a rock. I crawled in. When you're young, you sleep on anything. I had to have a pillow. I slept. But one day went away. The second day, he gave me some food and I'm a very good, I rationed off. You know, I remember an instance, I had one slice of bread, but I was afraid to eat the bread. So I ate a bite and I played with it until I was not hungry and drank some food to have another bite the next day. Frequently, I used to visit Yashko and he gave me some food. But what happened is I became lonely. I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to say a word. I have nobody to say anything. I had no information. I didn't know if it's daytime. I didn't know if it's what day it is. I didn't know what month it is. I used to go to Yashko and ask him, what is happening? He said, the Germans are losing. I didn't believe him because nothing changed with me.
And even in the forest, they found you.
In the forest.
But even in the forest, they came. The Nazis came and they found many people in the forest.
The forest were not Nazis. The forest were local people. Local people were looking for Jews. They were bounty hunters. They get paid when you brought in a Jew to the city. So guys went out and they cut Jews many times. Or if they couldn't take him away, they killed them. That was the worst time. Our little bunker was good. It was kept it. We were hiding in it, but there were bad people. People were so bad. They were hypnotized to hate the Jew, and you couldn't help it.
So awful. It's so awful.
Awful. It was awful. The awful thing was being alone. But I think again, it wasn't luck that I found somebody in the woods It was not luck. It was God sent to me. I don't know. Somebody had to control me because I was really going crazy. I painted at night in my mind. I looked at the stars at night. I became part of the living people in the woods. Even the little animals didn't bother me, and they were happy with me. I could walk around, and they were walking. And this is how I found Yannick.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? All of a sudden, the forest is alive, and all of a sudden, it's quiet. You don't hear a bird, nothing. Yannick, a little boy, is walking in the woods by himself. I pick up from my hiding place, and I see that little boy, younger than me, walking by himself. He was, mind you, dressed a little bit better than me because I had shoes on. I didn't have shoes. And I see in his dressing, I knew he has to be Jewish because the people, the farmers dressed differently. They dressed in a different type of clothing, embroidered. So I walked out to him and I say to him, "Are you Jewish?" He says, "Yes." "You must be hungry." He says, "Very hungry. I didn't eat for 2 days." So I took my slice of bread that I had and I gave it to him. He devoured it in 1 minute. And I knew this kid is not going to live long because he doesn't know. What happened to you? Why are you walking? My mother went to look for food and she never came back. My father went to look for food and he never came back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hungry and I'm walking and I found you. And that's how I find Yannick.
Well, and for those who've watched Cheating Hitler, they probably know the story of Yannick. And for those who don't, they have to read the book so they can find out what happened with you and Yannick.
I like that.
You talk in the book about you, and you actually just mentioned this before about maybe converting. You said that you hated yourself for being Jewish. You said if you weren't Jewish, you wouldn't live in constant fear. How do you feel now about being Jewish?
I am Jewish. As a matter of fact, I am very Jewish. I belong to 3 synagogues. I support 3 synagogues. But I want to tell you something. I am Jewish, but I don't believe in organized Jewish life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that the organized life. I don't believe, and you can't eat this and you can't eat that, because food is not something you could play around. You could eat or you don't. When you're hungry, you eat. And you cannot tell me, don't eat that and throw it away and die from hunger. This is organized religion, and I don't believe in it.
But you're glad you didn't convert, obviously, because you were thinking of converting.
I wanted to, because it would have been good. I went to Yashko with Yannick, and I said, convert. He says, I can't convert you. They'll catch me and they kill me. I can't go with you to be converted to a church. The church will kill you. The church will tell you, you can't do it. You refused. And I figured, he's right. I am Jewish and I have to be Jewish. He made me more Jewish than I was.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel now with the rise in anti-Semitism? I know for many Holocaust survivors, it's extremely upsetting to see what's happening right now. Well, it's upsetting for all of us, not just for Holocaust survivors, but how does it make you feel to see what's happening around the world?
Naomi, there's only one thing. We have to teach the children. It is okay. Canada opened up some schools. They started to teach about the Holocaust. But the anti-Semitism is not today flourishing in Canada. Anti-Semitism is thousands and thousands of years old. You can't get it out. Those are the churches that made it even stronger. The churches, they organize religion. They tell you what to do, what not. You maybe people are not as bad as people think they are, but they're taught and they told and they're hypnotized by the power, by the governments, by the ruling classes, and they believe them. They honestly believe them, and they believe them to a point, Naomi, that you wouldn't even believe that is possible. They honestly believe in everything the government tells them, the church tells them, the synagogue tells them. I don't know, those are people who give up their own mind to somebody else to rule their minds. They have no opinion. I'd say the wrong things.
How do we stop it then, Maxwell?
Education. Look at me. I'm 90 years old and I'm still talking about anti-Semitism and racism. And I'm telling him how bad it was, how murderous it was, how killing. Dude, some of the people want to listen. Some of them listen. A lot of people listen. I put in an answer in an email about anti-Semitism and racism, and I got 1,000 answers. People listen, but how could it be done? How could you go talk? I don't know. I have no idea. I do my best. I go to schools. I talk to children. People go to the March of the Living. They try. Does it help, Yomi?
Yes, it does. Education is key.
Yeah,
education is key. I want to switch and talk about the beautiful paintings behind you and talk a little bit. I'm sure people are really interested in talking to you about your work. You talked about how you were married, you had children, but again, you were faced with unimaginable pain when you were widowed at 54. Thankfully, you found happiness again with your wife, Tina, and she led you to revisit one of your passions, which is painting. So talk to us about what you love about painting and how it actually helped you deal with your feelings from the war.
In the war, I painted in my mind. But after the war, I have a talent. I'm talented. I'm talented as
yes,
a painter.
You are.
I'm talented as a painter. But a painter needs schooling too. You need to know something. I had a hard time, Naomi. I had to go to the Y because anything only that teaches me, I had to get it for free. So I looked in the Y. I took courses. I looked painting. And the first time when I went into the classes of painting, I liked the smell of painting. It was beautiful. I talk about painting. I went home. I didn't have a home yet but when I got my home and I got a basement, I painted on anything. I painted on jute. I painted on cloth, on boards. I painted on dish towels. I took away from my wife the dish towel. I made myself easy. I painted. When I married Tina, I had probably hundreds of paintings. She was amazed at the amount of paintings I have. She says, why don't you expose it? Why don't you show the people the beautiful paintings? I listened to her. She arranged the galleries. She opened 3 galleries for me, my own gallery.
Amazing.
She is an amazing person. She opened galleries. She arranged people for painting. She made she made paintings. My son Anthony is a tremendous help in the painting. He runs the galleries. We sell paintings. It is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it helped you deal with your feelings. Talk about how painting helped you deal with your feelings.
It is my life painting. I'm disconnected, Naomi. When I paint, I am really not here, and I'm not in the woods. I am immersed in painting. I don't know, I paint, I don't know what I paint, but I paint and I'm all there. I create, from that misery. I don't know how it transformed that I could create beauty. Everybody who sees my painting loves them. Young and old, your children, grown-ups, people with new homes, they come and love the painting. How could I create beauty out of such a horror? I don't believe this is just luck. Something is guiding me. Somebody is taking. I say that to my wife, that she is the one, that she is my angel. But I don't think she is the angel. She is maybe a little bit angelic, but I don't think she's a living angel.
Well, it's very nice that you think about her that way. It's a beautiful relationship that you both have.
Yes, I am here because of her.
That's very nice. Very, very nice.
Right.
We have a question, Maxwell. And actually, if people have questions, please enter them into the chat and I will ask them. But the question was, does Maxwell believe his impeccable visual memory has impacted his abstract expressionism painting?
Yes, I believe that.
Explain.
My back, I have, my paintings are sad too. You could look at them and see the forest. You see the horror. If you want, my paintings, you have to read. When I used to bring my paintings and to frame them, the frame, I used to say, I have to sit and decipher and read your painting. I see everything. When I tell them the story about the woods, I see your bunker. I see you, the sky. I see the trees. I see everything that I see in it. My paintings, you have to live to see it. It's not something, it's not a table and you forget about it. Mm-hmm. It's not a chair. It's not a familiar items that you could see. This is a ladder. This is a tree. You have to find the tree. The tree is there.
It is incredible. As this person who asked the question, you have an impeccable memory, really, to remember all of this, to feel it. We can all almost, you transport us there with you.
Yeah, I carry it. I go outside. I paint today. I'm 92 years old. I still go outside. I just finished installing my summer studio.
Wow.
I paint outside.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful release and a beautiful way for you to, it's a beautiful thing that you.
I also like to write too.
Well, you wrote this book, but it took you a while. You were telling me it took you a long time to write the book. How long and why?
It was hard to write the book. It was not easy because every time I write in the book, I am there. Mm-hmm. I write not on a chair and I make up a story. I write a fact. Yeah. I see it and I write what I see. I see me going into the cold water, Naomi. I see me holding into Yannick. I see being slippery. I see the current is strong in the river. I see it. Mm-hmm. I paint it too, what I see. So this is more a part of me. It's part of my life.
I wonder if you wish your memory wasn't as good because it's haunting.
I wish it wouldn't. I want many times, Naomi, I have the ability to disconnect myself because when I paint, I do disconnect, but in the memory, in my feelings, I paint.
Yeah.
But I don't put in my memory, but when I talk to you about what happened in the place, I am right there.
Mm-hmm. Which we heard when you read that part of the book. You can hear your pain still in your voice.
Yeah, that's what.
Which is why it was so hard to hear you read it. So you did talk in that excerpt about the baby. You found this baby in the water. For those who watched Cheating Hitler, they would discover that you actually years later,
80 years later,
you found the baby.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. And what was that like?
It was the most beautiful meeting in my life. Not only I found the baby that she's alive, I had no idea if she's going to live or not, but it relieved me, Naomi, from my guilt. I felt all those years guilty for Yannick's death because I pulled him into the water. He didn't want to go into the water. He was afraid to go into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled him into that water and I saved the baby. And what happened to the baby over 70 years? Nothing. I had no idea. So I felt that if I let the baby die, but I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I saved the baby at the cost of my only friend and only thing that I have. He was very precious to me. He was more precious than my life. I didn't want to live after him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could not go back to being alone.
Yeah.
If Yashko wouldn't bring me to his home, I would have probably let myself go to the Germans or whatever there is, and I would have been disappeared.
You think?
Yeah, I would have freely give up.
You wanted to give up at that point?
Yeah, I would have. But he took me into this house. He knew my pain.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt it. You know that this Yashko cried when he buried them in the bunker. He cried with tears. He felt such a feeling for me.
It's beautiful because it's a reminder that there are beautiful humans.
Yeah,
amidst all of this horror, there were some really good people.
And I could not, Naomi, give him the honor at Yad Vashem because I have no witnesses to produce that he is the person.
That's very unfortunate.
Unfortunate. You need two witnesses. If I would have been hiding with my mother and father, you had witnesses.
Well, we're almost at the hour mark, Maxwell. Thankfully, I know you talk a lot about, being alone, but you did end up coming to Canada, making a beautiful life for yourself with your family. Yes. You had a big, extended, large family.
Yes, I do.
You're no longer alone.
No, I am not longer alone. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody else. And I want to tell you something. No Jew could have survived this war without the Christian help, because the only place to get food was through a Christian. Mm. And if you didn't have a Christian friend, you were dead. So, but the Christian took a chance, because if he is cut, only in Poland, when a Jew was cut, Naomi, a Christian holding a Jew, he was hung in the market. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was terrible.
Yeah, they risked their own life.
Yeah,
and
the Polish people were helping the Jews. All of them, all the Polish people were helping the Jews, but they were also persecuted, not killed like a Jew, but they didn't have it easy.
Mm-hmm. Well, Maxwell, thank you for telling your story. Really, thank you for sharing your story with the world so that these stories will live on. They are proof. They are proof of history. They are so important, especially now, as I said, as the opportunity to hear from people like you is becoming less and less available. So we are all so grateful that you shared your story with us and with the world and opened your heart and your mind. And I know it brought back a lot of horrific feelings, but we're very grateful. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Naya. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lior.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Maxwell, for speaking to us this evening about your experiences and about your book. Thank you so much, Naomi, for this meaningful and powerful discussion with Maxwell. I know I learned so much, and now knowing his story, I can also...
And we can meet the beautiful Tina that he was talking about.
Yes. Hi, Tina.
Oh, he gets carried away. I told him not to do that.
No, it's a beautiful love story.
Very beautiful.
It's good that there's hope and love at the end of this.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Naomi.
Thank
and Muslim on your bar mitzvah, your son's bar mitzvah.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Very busy.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to thank Harper Collins Canada and the Montreal Holocaust Museum for joining us and presenting this evening. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to Maxwell's story. If you'd like to purchase his book, the link is in the chat. And overall, I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved in making this evening happen. Thank you, Maxwell, for joining us. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.